So next up here, let's add even more validation. This validation that we'll be adding will check if the email is correct, if the name is correct, and if the message is actually also above a certain amount of characters. So what we will do is we'll start out by building a function that will handle all of our error messages. So what we will do here is we will say function to add a new function. We'll call it ERR for error, and we will parse a error variable into it. So the content of the function itself will primarily be echo statements, but also the die function, so that it will kill the script if there's something wrong or if an error is detected. So let's set up an echo that says, error processing your form input. Let's add a few breakpoints. Jump to the next line. Another echo statement. Let's make this bold. And here we'll say, the errors are, and another breakpoint. And now we want to list all of our errors. So what we can do again, we will say echo, and then we'll use the parameter that has been added to the function. So in this case, it's called the error. And we'll just concatenate this with a few breakpoints. And finally, we'll have the die function that will kill the script. So a bit further down here, we'll remove the die within the if statement, because here we can now actually run our error message. So ERR, which is now our function, and it wants a parameter that is then the error. And here we can actually just take the message from the echo statement up here. So copy, paste it there, and delete the echo as well. So now let's set up the error message itself. So below the message, before the email message, what we'll do here is we will say new variable ERR underscore MSG error message equal to nothing at first. So this we will use for checking all of our error messages at the end. So if there's something in this variable, it means that we have actually prompted an error, and then we can run our error function up here. So going further down the script, the next thing is actually a lot of if statements. These if statements will look for these different validation issues. So first of all, we want to check if the email is correct. So we'll say if, and we'll say if not, and we'll use the built-in function called filter var. And this one will actually use two inputs. First of all, the variable, which is our email. And then it'll actually also need a parameter for what it should filter. So we want it to, in all caps, filter, and you can see you get a lot of options here that you can choose between. So we'll say filter underscore validate email. What should it do if it actually can't validate the email? Well, it should say that the error message, so our error message, should be concatenated by a message. And in this case, it's the email message entered is not correct. Exclamation mark just for good measure, and a semicolon at the end. And of course also a break. Next if statement we want to set up is to check if our name is correct. But to do that, we'll actually use a preg match, which will match the name up against a regular expression. So what we want to do here is we'll set up a variable first that we'll call string xp. So strxp equal to, and now we need to set up a regular expression. These you can Google and see how they are actually built. But for our case here, we just need to start it up by using the slash and the hat. And now we can define which characters are allowed. So within hard brackets, we can say A to Z in capital letters and A to Z in lowercase letters. We will also allow a space, a dot, and a hyphen. We'll also allow a dash in a person's name. So we can end this list of allowed characters, and we'll say plus because we can have as many of these as we want. So this is now ended by a $sign and a slash, and of course the semicolon at the end. So now we can take our string xp and we can actually match it up against the name that has been entered. So what we'll do now is we will go in and say if the string, the preg match. So first it needs the pattern. The pattern is of course our strxp. And then the next up, it wants the subject string, which is our name. So we will say name. So if it can't do this, we actually want it to again add to the message. So error message dot equal to. We'll say the name entered is not valid. We'll add a breakpoint and a semicolon at the end. Another two if statements are needed to do this, but we'll use the string length function to actually just build these. So the next step is to check if the message has the correct length. So if, and we'll just say str length, strlen, parentheses, and we'll take the message. So if the string length of the message is below, let's just say 3 characters long, we just want to say that the error message should be concatenated by the message is too short. So finally, what we need to do is we need to set up an if statement that says if the string length of our error message is above 0, so if there's anything in it, we actually want it to trigger our function. So in this case, it's the ERR, and we want to parse the error message into that as the parameter. So this one will execute our error function if any of these above get triggered, because they add to the error message, and the error message is located here as a parameter that checks if it has any content above 0 characters. We will trigger the function. So let's build up something extra here as well. Let's clean up the string for an email, because people can actually add different things to the email itself that prompts error messages in different email programs. So we will have to clean up the string. So let's set up a function. We will call this function cleanString, and we'll pass a string into it. So inside of this function, we want to define an array of bad things or bad words that we don't want to use. So let's just call it bad. We'll say equal to an array. And inside of this array, we'll add a few of these texts that we won't allow. So one is content type. Another one is called BCC colon. Yet another one is called to colon, CC colon. And we also have the href colon and the semicolon at the end. And now we actually need to return something. So we will say return. We want to return the string replaced version of this. So string replace. It needs a search option, which is of course our bad variable, because that is the search criteria. We want it to replace with nothing. So we'll just leave 2 double quotes here with nothing in between, which will just delete it. And the subject that we want to pass here is of course our string that we put into the function. So now what we will do is we will add this down here. We'll say name, and then we'll do a concatenation. So we'll say name space, and then a double quote. We'll say concatenated by clean string version of the name, and then we'll add another double quote here. Remember the concatenation as well. So now we're doing a clean string version of the name. We'll do the exact same thing for email and for message, and I'll just copy paste these. So that's basically it. Now we have a complete contact form with a program behind it that will check if there are any errors in the input. It will validate the email, the name, the message itself, and it'll then, if everything checks out, clean everything up and then send out the email through the mail. So you can upload it to your server that actually has an SMTP server set up, and then it should send out the email. I'm working currently on a local server, so as soon as I would go in and check this, so I could say I'm called Jojo at jojo.jo, and then just an email message, and I'll click send. It now tries to send it out, but warning, mail failed to contact mail server, but thank you for your message, Joe, in this case. So everything checks out with this form. So that's basically it. Thanks for watching, everyone.